Thank you everyone for joining. So this is our 12th meetup for Lucknow. So in today's session, we'll be covering asset management in Anypoint exchange, and it is for every use cases, for examples, template, fragment, everything that we use daily. And Prashant will give us a very new topic also, data weave exchange also. So we will go through it one by one. So let us start this meetup. So Abhishek, your picture. Okay. So we are three organizer for this meetup. So me, Akib Javed, and Rutuja and Abhishek. So I will introduce myself. So this is Akib Javed. I have total experience of 7 years in IT and 3+ years in Mulesoft. I am certified architect and developer, and I'm working with Cognizant as a senior associate. Me and Prashant work in a same vertical but for different project. So thank you, Prashant, for accepting my invite and presenting this very interesting topic. Okay, Abhishek, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Akib. So, hello everyone. Hi, this is Abhishek. I'm working as an associate solution architect in Epicero. I'm a Mulesoft ambassador. I have overall of 6+ years of experience and 4+ years in Mulesoft. I'm a certified developer and architect, and I'm leading Guwahati and Lucknow Meetup group. So that's all about me. And now I want to thank our speaker Prashant for taking it up and presenting it for Lucknow group. Thank you so much, Prashant. Over to you, Akib.
So Rutuja is not there, right, Abhishek?
Yeah, she's not there, unfortunately.
Okay,
She has
yeah.
some work, so she's
She's
not
on,
present.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so she is also one of our hosts for this Lucknow city. So currently she is busy with something, so she's not able to join. So let's move. So Prashant, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Akib. Thank you, Abhishek. So, hi, hello everyone. First of all, welcome to the session. My name is Prashant Gunjal. I'm currently working as a senior associate at Cognizant Technology Solutions, Pune location. I have total 7+ years of experience, and I have nearly 4+ years of experience in Mulesoft. I have completed multiple certifications for Mulesoft, like Mule 3 and Mule 4, and I'm also one of the Mulesoft mentor. Last year I've recognized, and I'm also one of the active member of Mulesoft community help forum. And yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn anytime. So yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, so reading
Okay.
our safe harbor statement. So both the speaker and the host are organizing this meetup in individual capacity only. We are not representing our companies here, and this presentation is strictly for learning purpose only. Organization and presenter do not hold any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirement. This presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. Okay, some housekeeping before we deep dive into the session. So recording of this meetup will be uploaded to the event page within 24 hours, and questions can be submitted asked anytime in the chat or Q&A tab. So we will try to make it more interactive. So we will take questions in between as possible. So type your question in the chat, and at the end of the session, we will enable all the mics to ask questions one to one. Okay, till the presentation is on, we will keep the question in chat, and we will ask in between to Prashant. Okay, and the most important thing, give us your feedback because it will make us improve better by better every meetup we organize. Okay. Okay, so over to you, Prashant. You can share your screen. I will stop sharing so you will have better control.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, provide me the role maybe because I'm not able to. Okay, I have it now.
Yeah, you have.
All right. Okay, so first of all, let me know if my screen is visible and I'm
Yes,
audible properly.
yes. So you can,
All right.
yeah, you can go to the presenter mode.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
thanks,
Okay.
thanks.
So we have yeah, so we have our agenda. So in today's session, I'll be explaining you all the Anypoint exchange assets, whatever we have at this point of time, and I'll be explaining you all the process by which we can design, develop, implement, publish those assets to Anypoint Exchange, and how many different ways are there by which we can do it. Okay, so first of all, we'll complete the basic like the API lead connectivity. Then we will have a overview on the importance of assets in the C4E, which is Center for Enablement. And then we'll have some assets list, whatever we have in Anypoint Exchange. Then we'll go deep dive in each of these assets. So we'll start with the data wave libraries, which is the latest assets, as you all know, which is being released last to last week only. And I'll give you an overview on the kind of demo on data wave libraries. And starting from the data wave libraries, we'll go till custom assets, including these all these assets in between, right? Examples, template, REST APIs, API speak fragments, HTTP API, SOAP API, connector policies, and custom assets. So I'm trying to make this as a one-stop solution for all your assets related queries, and we'll try to show everything in a easiest way by which anyone can develop and publish all these assets. So anyone who don't know what all assets we have and how to design it, how to develop it, so I think this might be the perfect session for you all right. Okay, and yeah, so one more thing. So this session might go beyond 1 hour. Okay, so it's a practical session. I'll mostly concentrate on the practical session instead of more theoretical. Okay, so you might not find multiple slides, but you'll find multiple demos. Okay, in this session. So this might go beyond 1 hour or 1.5 year. So yeah, please bear with me. All right, so let's start with the first one, API lead connectivity. So we all know what is API lead connectivity, right? So it's a multi-layer approach which Mulesoft has recommended, right? Which we have a system API, we have a process API, and we have an experience API. So ultimate idea of this architecture is to make the assets or make the APIs reuse so that we'll have a quicker time to development and we'll have a quicker time to deployment. So all the multiple life cycle of the API development, that will be in a quicker time. Okay, so so this is basically the ultimate aim of API lead connectivity. So we all know that we have a central IT team, which is a kind of C4E team, which will design or develop assets, and they will then publish that assets to the Anypoint Exchange. And those assets, they can, they can document those assets, like what these assets are doing. And so I'll basically explaining you the documentation as well, like how to properly document it as per my knowledge, right? So that way, like central IT team will then publish it. Then we have a LOB team, line of business team in between. Those can also publish it. Those can also use it. So we have a we might have a multiple business groups in each organization, right? So multiple business group have their own IT team. Okay, so in that case, these IT teams can reuse that or maybe publish it on top of it, right? Then we have an app developer team, which they basically reuse it, right, those assets for their particular use cases, development use cases, right? So this picture you might have seen multiple times. This is a system API which will connect to the systems, which will basically handle the system, which will connect to a system and make it uh, uh, make it reusable. Okay, so the data they can unlock, the system data they can unlock, and then the process API can then connect to the system API, and then they can take the data. They can then do some kind of business validations in between, and then that can be sent to the experience API. So all these layered we have, that is, we called it as a API lead connectivity. Right. Let's go to the Center for Enablement, which is a C4E, which is very important team when you're building, Mulesoft practice from start in any of the organization. And this asset plays a very important role in the success of this C4E team. Okay, because the ultimate aim of the C4E to have the reusable assets as much as they can, and the uh, the reusability they can offer multiple times, right? So they have multiple ways we can reuse the assets, right? So this is the diagram we have on the left hand side and on the right hand side, right bottom and left top. So we have this whole triangle, which says we have a LOB, we have an innovation team, central IT team, and this the C4E team will connect between these three, and then they can it's a kind of like there is a cross functional team, and they ensure that all assets, whatever we have, those are produced and published to the Anypoint exchange. So they takes care of all the assets management. Okay, like the consumable, how much those are consumed, how much those are consumed broadly, like in what way they have consumed, right? If that functionality has been fully leveraged or not. So all these things they have to take care, right? And at last, the success of C4E team measure on the assets consumption. So how many assets we have in any point exchange, and how many of them are consumed properly, right? So on that part, the success is mainly based on, right? So here on the right bottom side, you can see the production. The central IT team or the LOB team can produce these assets. Then those assets has been reused by the LOB or developer team, right? So it's a circle which will reduce the development time and which makes the development faster and deployment faster, right? So that's the ultimate aim of this C4E. All right. So we'll see what all assets we have in Anypoint Exchange. So on the right side, we have all the type of assets, right? The connector template. So if you basically can go to Anypoint Exchange, so you'll find these many assets. Okay, the connector template, example, policies, till custom. So every asset have their own use case and own importance. Okay, so I'll try to explain all of them, not all of them. For async APIs, this might take a separate session because it's a quite lengthy. So I've skipped async API for now, but I'll try to cover all of them at this point of time. Okay. And on the left hand side, you can see the asset type and the asset description. So what this description is, I mean, what this asset is actually doing, and what kind of what kind of advantages this asset is providing to us, right? So all that asset description is being mentioned here. The connector template, example, policies, right? API group, REST API, SOAP API. So now I'll explain you the basic of all of them. Connector, we better know, like to connect to any of the system, right? Then we have a template. So template asset is mainly used when we want to when we have a kind of we have solved a kind of problem, right? And which you don't want other developers to like again go with that problem. Okay, so you just have to let them know that this problem has been solved and you can reuse this template. So that template is important part, what I'm thinking. Then the examples we have, if suppose it's similar to the template, but it's not required that the example should be followed by the best practices, right? So it's similar to the template as well. Then the policies, we know all the policies whatever we have in API manager, we have a default policy, we have automated policies. Then we can even create our own custom policies, right? So it's a top security for your API. Okay. Then we have a API group. API group as in like you can request for an API as a group. Okay, you don't have to request each API. So you can just create a group and then you can request that particular group, and all that API inside that group will be accessible to you. Then we have a REST API. So REST API basically is like if we have a so REST API basically created in the YAML file, right? So whenever we create a YAML file, we can assign some policies, we can apply that to the API manager, so that we can do it in a API manager. So REST APIs are mainly used for that purpose. Okay. And then we have a SOAP API. So if suppose we have any SOAP API outside the Mulesoft, which has been created by some other technology, Java or anything, so in that case, we can reuse that functionality and we can then apply that in a API manager. So basically, we can make our policies, whatever we have in Mulesoft, to be accessible to that particular SOAP API. So a private exchange user can then reuse that SOAP API and they can apply the policies, their own policies, like custom default anything, right? So that also Mulesoft has allowed us to add that functionality. Then we have a data wave libraries. So data wave libraries are a kind of reusable data wave code, uh, which we can now publish to Anypoint Exchange with proper documentation. So previously, we used to create this reusable code in our Anypoint Exchange, Anypoint Studio, right, in the module file. But that we basically used to then share it to other developers over mail or over chat, right? But now we can now publish that to Anypoint exchange with a proper documentation. So that and it also allows it. It is now basically a kind of full API lifecycle. Okay, like previously we just used to share the code, but now we can create that code and we can even test that code in our API only, right? So it's like we can create our unit test cases for that code, like munit for that particular module or mapping file. Okay, and based on the code we can separate it, right? Like we have some code, like we basically have some inbuilt modules, right, in array, like something like that in data view. So based on that we can separate our own module and we can create our own code, right? Then we have async API. So async API is also newly introduced, is based on the open API specification that defines the interface for asynchronous API. Okay, so it's a new concept which Mulesoft has added, and that is also one of the very important topic. Then we have a HTTP API. So similar to the REST API or SOAP API, if any separate HTTP API we have apart from MuleSoft, like other created by MuleSoft or any other technology, so that also we can reuse. And a private exchange user who want to manage that endpoint with the API manager, yeah, they can do it, right? And then we have a API spec fragment. So API spec fragments are a kind of reusable RAML fragments which other developers can reuse, like security error handling, right? So if anyone wants to develop any RAML file, they don't have to do it from the base. They can just check all the reusability fragments in the exchange and they can just import that. So I'll try to show you how to create it, each of them, publish it, implement it, reuse it, right? And that way you'll get a better idea on this. All right. So that's all for the Anypoint Exchange assets. So let me now do a Anypoint Exchange setup. So that might take 5 to 2 minutes. Give me a minute. I'll do a setup from scratch so that it will be uh, like it is clearly understanding, right? So I'll make as a sign up for now. Same username. All right. So this login is done. Now I just have to make some organization related changes. Let me do it. So first of all, by default, you'll have one business group which is created. So let me just take the organization ID of it. This will need. And that I'll keep it in somewhere. Right. Then I'll need the username as well. So as soon as the assets are developed or deployed, you can even test it on your side. You can just log in with these credentials, right? And that way it will be easy for you as well, right? So now let me create a role. Let me create a role. So basically you'll need an exchange contributor role for this assets to be deployed or published to exchange. But for now, I'll basically take all the roles, right? So question that this, right? And let me add all the permissions. The user is by default not added. Let me add it. We'll be using the sandbox. So when you don't have multiple business group, like if you have a basic or a parent business group, in that case, this particular permission, like the exchange contributor, so that is by default added to you. Okay, so that's why it is not visible for me here. All right, so everything is done. I'll not create the environment for now. I'll use the sandbox only. And I think that's all. Let me check if I'm missing anything. No. Okay. So the environment setup is done. Now I'll have to do the deployment setup, right? So deployment setup, for that, I'll have to add this credentials to setting.xml file. So I already have one setting.xml file with me. All right. So here, if you can see, so we'll be using a Maven Facet API for the deployment, as well as we'll be using the Anypoint Studio wherever we can, right? So there are few assets which can be deployed with the Anypoint Studio, and there are few assets which needs a Maven Facet API for the deployment. So we have we also have the Exchange API option as well to deployment, but that is pretty much lengthy as compared to this one, right? So I prefer to Maven Facet API because that uses a Maven client basically to deploy any of the assets. Okay, so for that you need you need some setup, not multiple setup. You need few setups, right? So that setup I have documented it here. Let me show that maybe. So for Maven Facet API, you'll have to first, of course, create a business group, and you have to set up the Anypoint platform. Then you'll have to add some servers in the setting.xml file, and then you have to then add the distribution management repository, right, in the POM file for each assets, whatever you want to deploy. Okay, so this setup you have to do. Most importantly, this one, we have to add the distribution management in the POM file. And the second one is we have to add this particular server, like the username and password for that particular distribution management repository in the setting.xml file. All right. So I already have one server here added, and let me add the latest username. And I'll keep the ID as Anypoint Exchange repository. So with this, the repository and the setting.xml file server is been mapped, right, with this ID. All right. So this is the only change for now. And the next change I'll be doing whenever I'll try to deploy the assets. Like I have to add this organization ID in the POM file. All right. So the setup is done. Let's try to go deep in each assets. Let us try with the data libraries first. Now, data wave library. So as you know, this has been announced on March 30, right? And this is the particular block for that data libraries. Now, data wave library is not only the first citizen in Exchange, but it also offers a full development lifecycle from designing, testing, and troubleshooting to sharing the code, right? So whatever I told previously, previously we used to share the code using the file and using chats, right? So now we can make this as a data wave module as a full development lifecycle, right? It allows to create modules and mapping file. So previously, if you remember, we only create the module file. We can only create the module file, right? Mapping file is already your script only, right? So we can create a module file, but here we can even create the module as well as a mapping file. It allows some advantages like the auto completion. When you create anything in data wave, I'll show you, then it basically auto completes, right? Whatever methods you are currently writing or whatever is basically supported, that is auto completed, right? Then we have an inline documentation. This is the most important thing, right? Inline documentation. So basically, whenever like developer usually deploy the assets and they usually forgot to add the documentation, which is very much important as per me, right? Because that usually makes sense to other developer, like how to reuse it and all these things, right? So now this module, data libraries has added this inline documentation. Okay. Then we have a type checking. If anything goes wrong, it will just type check it. Then we have a quick fixes. Like if you have worked on Java, it usually, if anything goes wrong, it usually asks us for the quick fixes, right, in the Eclipse. So that quick fixes is also available now in the data libraries. We have a refactor and navigation. We can quickly navigate to any modules anywhere we can, right? And then we have an output preview. This is also important. So it is similar to the DW lang, whatever we used to do, like whatever code we write, then we see that in the right side, in the output preview, right? So that is similar, accessible in the allowed in the data libraries beta version as well, right? And also the third most important thing is the plugins support debugging your code, right? So just imagine debugging your data wave code, how much important it is, right? So that is now allowed in the data libraries. All right. Then we'll now start building the data libraries. So we have these three approaches: design, testing, and maintaining your library. Then we have a publishing your library, and then reusing the library, right? So for design, testing, and maintaining, we have to download the Visual Studio beta plugin, okay, which is a Visual Studio code plugin, which is a beta version which Mulesoft has provided. So for this, you'll need a Visual Studio to be installed in your machine. So whatever we'll be doing, we'll be doing in a Visual Studio. We will not be using Anypoint Studio here. All right. Then we can even develop and test the framework using the testing framework, whatever they have provided. Then we can publish it using DataWave Maven plugin, right? So now they have, improvised a kind of Maven plugin, what I think, because Mule Maven plugin, now they have a Dataway Maven plugin for this, right? And here, if you can see, there are multiple roles, and the important role here they have added is deploy docs. So whatever the docs we usually create in the Datawave, we can now deploy it using this Dataway Maven plugin. Okay, these are the roles basically which has added to the new Dataway Maven plugin. Okay, and then we can reuse the library. So simply we can reuse the data library snippet, whatever we used to do, and we just have to basically add that as a dependency in your POM file, right? And the repository, and that will be then downloaded from the Anypoint exchange. All right. So this is the structure. Sorry, this is the structure. I'll not be explaining it for now. Let me create that file now, data library, and then I'll explain it. So that will make sense, right? So now let me open the data library. I'll see if it is already opened. Yeah, it is already opened. Okay, so you'll need, so basically the first thing you'll need is data Visual Studio code installed on your machine, right? So I already have a Studio code installed on my machine. Now there are few steps by which we can create the data libraries. Okay, the steps are, you have to go to view, command palette, right? And you'll find this option, data view, create new library project. Now this option will be visible when you download the Visual Studio Visual Studio plugin, whatever Mulesoft has provided. That you have to download it. First of all, install your Visual Studio code. Then we have to download that particular plugin. Then we have to install that in your local machine in your Visual Studio, and then after that you will see this option, right? This is the create new library project, create new integration mapping. This is for testing. This is the mapping file, and this is the module file. I'll tell you what is mapping and module. So these two are what I'm thinking is important here, right? So let me create the library project now. It will allow the basic information like the create project. So let me add something like maybe Mulesoft Meetup. I'm just thinking if I'm not missing anything. Okay, let me add something. Org Mulesoft.meetup. Then the create project, the project name, let me add it usable TWLIB, right? Then I'll keep the snapshot as one only. Then the example project again the same, reusable TWLIB, right? And the path. So for path, I'll take the path as a T and soft. All right, Mulesoft Meetup. So I think, all right. So once you create it, it will allow you to create open this in a new window. Just click yes. So for the new user, this might take some time as it downloads some few dependencies. All right. So this is now created. I'll just close the previous one. It's taking memory. All right. So when you create a project, you'll see this window, the project, right? And these two files. Okay. The POM file, we all know what it is, right? And now this is the SRC main folder. I'll click it. All right. So this is the POM file. I'll come to this. Now let's concentrate on SRC folder. So SRC has two folders, main and test. Okay, let me go to main. It has two subfolders, DW and resources. And for the test as well, it is DW and resources, right? Now all our code, whatever we write, the database code, it will go in a DW. Okay, the module file, mapping file, everything will go in a DW. And all the test, like the unit test cases as everything, it will go under SRC test DW, like here. So these are the kind of unit test cases. These are the actually code. So it's similar to SRC main resources, SRC test resources, and SRC main Mule, right? So it's, we can compare it to that one. Now let me open the my module file, and let me go to that slide now. All right. So sorry, yeah. So now you'll see the similar structure which has been created, SRC main DW, then SRC test DW. We have two files, my mapping file, my module file, the same two files, my module test and my mapping test, right? Now at this point of time, we only have one file, right? But we can even create any files we want, right? And in the resources, all the supporting resources will go in this, right? SRC test resources and SRC main resources. What is required for that particular file, that will go under resources folder. All right. Now let's come to the module. I'm sorry, again. Module and mapping file. Now, custom modules are those files which can define functions, variable types, and namespace, right? So it's not a data wave code. So whatever the data wave, whatever the functionality you want to reuse in your actual data wave code, that will go under custom module, right? And the other, it's totally opposite, is the mapping file. So mapping files are actually the data wave script, the actual data wave scripts, whatever we write. All right. So whatever we write in module file, that will be reused, right? In any of the script we write, and whatever is written in the mapping file, that is actually the data wave script, and that also we can reuse. All right. So this is for module and mapping file. Okay. Now let me start the demo quickly. All right. So this right now we have two files created, my module, my mapping. In the module file, if you can see, there is only one function, hello world, right? And it is just printing hello world. And in the my mapping, we are just calling that particular my module file. All right. And now let me show you how to basically do the view. So here, if you can see, we can view that now. So whatever the code we write here, we can view it. Okay. So here we are just calling that function for now, but whatever we change it here, right? Meetup, right? So everything we can view it here. So it's similar to the DW lang. It's not updated. Okay, so you can see now it has been updated. So it takes some time to update. So whatever we do it, we get to see it here, right, in the preview output. Now the second thing is we can debug this code. Okay, so for me the port for this machine is, it might be blocked, so that's why it might, so sometime it might not allow me to debug it properly. But for now, let me add the debugger pointer here, and with this option in the left hand side, you can just run and debug. Okay, then it will ask for the testing framework. We'll just ask you the data wave mapping.
So Prashant, there is one question from Kalyani. So she wants to repeat the
Mhm.
difference between custom module and custom mapping.
Okay, the difference you want to know, is it?
Yes, yes. Kalyani wants to know the
Okay.
difference.
Okay, so custom modules are actually so basically when you write any database script, right? So when you basically add some number or you just do a map operation, right? So you do some map operation on some input, right? What is expected. So all that mapping operation is being done in one script. So whatever we used to write here at this point of time, that is custom mapping file. Wherever we write the actual code, okay, but that map has already a code for it. Like the map has inbuilt code for it, and that is a kind of module. So that is written somewhere else. Okay, so it's a core component and that is being imported in the code. So the actual code for that map module, that is written in the custom module. So custom module will actually have the code which we can reuse, and custom mapping is that file where we actually write our data wave code. Is that clear?
Yes, yes. She sees it.
Okay. Okay, I'll show you many anyway. I'll just explain that better in this thing. Okay, so I think at this point of time, the debug is not working. I'll not waste time for this. Okay. Now let me introduce the second uh, important thing for these data libraries. The second one is the modules, sorry, data wave documentation. So here, if you can see, we have a generate data wave documentation button enabled and a unit test button enabled. I'll click this data wave documentation and you'll see one documentation is being created here. Okay, like it is not actually the documentation, it's just a template part. Okay, the source we have, and then we have a output. So basically it's just a template which they allow us to create, and then we can update that template as soon as it is getting deployed to the exchange or before as well, right? So this way we can generate the documentation, and we can even create the unit test cases for that using one button. All right, the unit test cases file is being created in the src test dw now. Okay, all right. So I have one sample use case which I'd like to explain it in data wave libraries, and I'll need the dw lang for that as well. Okay, I have one code which I'll show you to write that in data library. I'll show it first here what this code is doing. So this code is just creating some random number using this function, whatever we have, that is random int, right? And that function, the number is being created and the leftover number is also created, like 710. Okay, so whenever you just refresh it, a new number is being created, and along with that, the number is being also added in the words. Okay, so now I'll bifurcate it in two things. The first one is the function. I'll add this function to the data wave module file, and the second one is the actual data wave script. So that script I'll add to the mapping file. All right, so let me now open our copy the functions. I'll go to the module file. Let me create a new module file. Okay, I'll paste the function. Okay, now I'll create the mapping file, the same location, my DW mapping file. Okay, and here I'll just copy the rest code. All right, so now if you want to see the output here, we can see that here as well in the preview output button, right? We have a limit, then we have a number and this leftover number. As soon as we refresh it, the number will be changing. Okay, so this way what I did now is I've separated the function as a separate module, which this function will just change your digit to words, whatever number you send. It will just do the if else statement, and based on that it will just do a digit to words. And the actual script, whatever we write, that we write in mapping file. So here we write our DW code. Okay, I hope it's now clear. All right, so this is how the code DW lang code works. Okay, now the second thing is I'll now deploy this to Exchange as well as to my local M2 repository. For that, I'll have to go to form file and need to do a few changes. These are the common changes we have to do every time for each asset. Group ID, we'll have to replace it. We'll change the snapshot to 100, so it will be a stable version. In the packaging, this will be a DW library, right? And we have to then add the distribution management as a repository. So here, if you can see, they have provided us with the option and it's commented out. So I'll just uncomment it, and this distribution management repository will be auto added. Okay, we'll have to change the organization ID here as well. Okay, and the ID. So with this exchange ID, I don't have anything in my setting.xml file. I have with this. Okay, and it will also allow you to build it, but for now I don't want to build. Let it be taken care by the ambient deploy command. All right, so let me see if I'm missing anything. All right, so everything is done. Okay, I'll just now go to that particular location and we'll just do a ambient deploy. Ambient deploy. Okay. This at this point of time, I know the way by which we can deploy it using MPN, using the Maven Facility API. So that way I'm doing it. Okay. Now here we have one problem that it will not allow me to deploy for now because it says that artifact ID is not available or it's invalid, something like that. So I think it needs some enterprise repository credentials. So at this point of time, I don't have it, and that might be a problem for my side or from any side, I don't know. So ultimate is we do at this point of time, this will not be deployed to Anypoint Exchange, but this will be deployed to your local M2 repository. Okay, so I can show you that by using that from my local M2 repository. Okay. Okay, if you can see the same artifact could not be resolved. All right. I even tried to change the this thing version as well for the enterprise repository, like v3, v2, v1, but it's the same for all. Okay, so rather than wasting some time, I'll just quickly show you how to reuse it now. So till the time this code is getting ready, I'll copy the POM file, whatever I need. Okay, so I'm just making a dependency of this DW library file ready, right? And the packaging will be classifier. Right, this is ready, and data code is also ready. HTTP listener. Okay. All right, so this is also imported, and now I'll add that dependency, DW dependency, in this form file. So this particular file or jar file will be downloaded from my link.
Prashant, your repository tag is closed. I think line number
Oh,
54.
sorry, I think I have.
A slash will come in that repository.
Yeah, instead of dependency tag, I've added the repository tag. Sorry. Okay, so as soon as you save it, you'll have the file as a project library available here. When you want to download it from the Anypoint Exchange, along with this dependency, you have to provide the repository, the same repository, CDP repository, distribution management, and that will be downloaded. So for now, if you can see, this library has been imported here, and you'll see the files whatever we have created. So now I'll just open the mapping file. So mapping file is actually having the our code. Module file will have having that particular function, and this is the hello world file, whatever is being by default created. Okay. Now let me import it. So in this transform message, you just have to do a import star from my model file. Okay. I already have the script with me. Just copy it quickly without wasting time. So this way you can basically import that my mapping file is being imported, my model file as well also being imported using the simple function, import function, right? And in this, I'm just doing a digit to word and I'm just providing some number. See if it works. Okay, by the time it is getting deployed. So I'll come back to module mapping again. So this, I know this might be a confusion, but when you start developing it, you'll get to know like what it is. Okay, and the use case for that. So apart from the functions as well, we can even add some variables, the types and namespaces, right? So whatever we is being required for the SOAP or visual file, the namespaces also we can add it. Okay, the types we can add. So anything we can add it, we can reuse it. We want to reuse it. It's we can create like think of an API fragment. Okay, if you understand the concept of API fragment, that you can consider this as a module. The similar way it works one and one. Okay, still getting deployed. I'll keep my local host ready. Okay, deployed. Okay, now we can see that function call we have called and the number we have provided, it has just converted that to the digit and that has been sent it to us as a response. All right. So this is how we can create and reuse the data wave library files, and it has the single module has taken 1 hour of time. I don't know. Okay, maybe if you want to continue, because the rest will definitely take more time, or we can cover two assets maybe,
Yeah, yes.
and
I
then
was
we
also
can
thinking the same. I think this is more important
mm,
because
the
this will be very helpful for every one of us because this is launched new and there is no much documentation available over the internet. So this session will clearly help everyone a lot.
exactly. So now this, yeah, it has a, yeah, other benefit as well, right? Correct. Okay, so I hope I'm able to uh, explain it properly. Okay, so this is all for data library code, and let me know if any questions are there, maybe. Okay, or else we
Uh,
can move to the second
no,
asset.
right now we do not have
I
any
am not able
question.
to.
I think we have
All
only
right, no
one
problem.
question from
So
Kalyani, which we
now,
have covered.
okay, let's now move to the second asset. I'll try to cover two assets only, example and templates, but we have few more assets, and that a kind of interesting assets. So that I'll cover in the next session.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this data wave, yeah, data wave I've actually added at the last minute, right? So I was expecting to start with the example first, but the data wave was added at the last, and that took some time. Okay, and it's latestly added. So yeah. Okay, so for example, let's go to the example now. So what are examples? So examples, applications that are ready to run in Anypoint Studio and demonstrate a use case or a solutions. Okay, so as explained, examples are that assets for which, if suppose you have solved one solution, one problem with a particular solution, that you can demonstrate as a use case, and that you can then publish it to Anypoint Exchange. Okay, so that the other person who will be working on that particular concept or any endpoint or anything related to that, they can just search for that particular thing in Anypoint Exchange and they'll get to know. Okay, so they can then download these examples in their Anypoint Studio and then they can reuse it, right? They can check how this problem has been solved properly. So here in the example and template, the documentation is important because that will basically give you the or give the other developer a better idea, right, what it is. Now, so for example, I have one example file already with me, so I don't have to create it again. I already have it with me. Then I have one use case which I have a kind of small problem I have solved, and that I'll be deploying it as an example in the Anypoint Exchange, right? So I'll be deploying it from Anypoint Studio using the publish command, and the second one is I'll be using the maven facet API to publish it to Anypoint Exchange. So I'll try to show you the both way. Okay. So let me now go to the folder, respective folder. Examples. All right. Okay. So for examples, let me open this file first. Okay. So I'll tell you what was the problem and what was the solution for that problem. So when we were processing the Excel file, processing as in copying from one location to other location or one endpoint to other endpoint over multi-part form data request, so that the metadata was not getting copied. Okay, only the content was getting copied. Okay, so this was a problem, and even I tried. So after few searching, like I got to know like this is a kind of limitations from the Mulesoft. Not sure if this has been solved now, but it was the limitations like the macros, whatever we have in Excel file, those were not currently supported. Then the charts, whatever we have in the Excel file, those are ignored, and the pivot tables are also not supported. So all the metadata was not supported. We were only getting the content at the endpoint. Okay, now how we have solved this problem, we have changed the content type at the source level in the multi-part form data as application octet stream. So it will be taking that particular file as a stream, not as any application XLSS or any content type. Okay, so this was the only change. The content type for that particular file has been changed to application octet stream. When you basically read any file, it basically by default the content type is being added as application XLSS or the application VAD and some long thing, right? So these two things are being added. We have intentionally changed it to octet stream, and that file has been streamed now. So if the metadata and the content is being properly carried to the end system. All right. So I'll already have one code with me. I'll quickly uh, import that code in Anypoint Exchange. These two things might not take more than 15 minutes. Okay, the same time I'll keep my Anypoint Exchange as well ready. Okay, so the code is okay. The code is now imported. I'll close the old one. I'll not explain the code for now. Okay, so I've already explained the use case. You can download the if you. So these are the two files. Now what I have to do is I'll deploy this file as from the Anypoint Studio. So from Anypoint Studio, it's a simple one. Right click and deploy to the Exchange. Give me a minute. It is still trying to import few files. All right, done. Okay, like this, just do a publish to Exchange. Okay, I'll have to add the account. Okay, so this has been added now. The business group is CTS. And this will be deployed as a Exchange. All right, you'll see this pop-up message, and this has now been explained. I'll quickly refresh it to see if it is populated. Okay, so this is now the properly deployed. Now the important thing is documentation. So it has to be properly documented. Okay, so I already have some documentation available with me which explains how to reuse this example file. Okay, so I'll just copy those documentation. Okay, and with this documentation, I'll also have to add few images that I'll quickly do it to make it more attractive. Just give me 2 more minutes. So this particular whatever we used to deploy, that has to be documented well, so that it is, you know, it is clear for everyone who might be using this, who wanted to use these examples, right? That I'll show it here. So as you know, these are the two ways by which we can add the documentation using the markdown and the visual one. And the last one, perfect, everything fine. Now I'll just go to visual to see how it looks. All right, so this is a kind of documentation. You can even see that after logging in. So it explains what are the limitations, right? Then what this example is trying to do. It has some image for the code just to give you a top level overview for any user to use it. Then the assumptions, then we have example use cases. So what are the use cases? Like the option one is file upload form data via Postman client. Then we'll be using the file upload via code and file upload as a binary via the Postman client. So these are the three options use cases. Then good to have if required, and then set up and run this example. So in this, you can just explain how to download this code from and how to import it and what all changes you have to do basically to run this code in a proper way. Okay, so everything will run this setup and run. Then we have the core solution as a part of content type, which is application object stream, and the client request, Postman client request. So for first option, how to basically make a request that you can document it properly. Then for the second one, right, with few screenshots to make it more attractive, and the third one, right. And once that is done, the application output also, like what all things has been achieved with this changes, that also you can just add the screenshots to make it more attractive. So here you can see these charts and the tables, right, that has been added, and this is the particular macros, right? So everything is being added. So this way we can just publish it, right? And uh, I usually add the images for the connector or example or template or any asset, and which make that asset look pretty good in Exchange. So that also I've done, and that's all. So that way this assets has been deployed now properly, right, this example. And you can now check it from your side if this makes sense to make it more easy for you to understand, right. And the rest thing you can do it like manage versions, you can share it, right, you can download it, anything you can do. All right, and now let's move to the template part. It will take 5 more minutes, bear with me please. So that's how we have deployed the example parts. Let's move to the template part. So it's similar to the example, but in template, we usually follow the best practices so that template can be directly reused and anyone can then basically orchestrate anything on top of it, and they can reuse that as a base, right? So it's a integration pattern built on the best practices to address common use cases. It completes the template use case or solution by supplying your own information, customizing it, or extending the template as required. All right. Okay, so I'll go back to the example again. I forgot to uh, deploy it using Maven Face API. No problem. I'll make it available in this template, right? So in the template, it's a similar use case for the example. I'll try to deploy that. I'll show you to deploy how to deploy that or publish it from Studio and then using the Maven. Okay. So similar to the example, I already have the template file ready, which is in my folder, right? I'll quickly import it. So this is so the use case for this template is we have created an email system API by which we can send multiple file formats or email, right, as easy as we can, and over the SMTP port. So whoever want to send the email, they can just reuse this template directly with few changes, of course. Code anyway is pretty much big to explain. I'll quickly deploy this file to Exchange using the same thing, publish to Exchange. And this time I'll take it as a template, right? I'll publish it. Okay, similar to the example files, I already have something ready for template as well, the documentation and everything. I'll quickly copy that. Okay, so it has been published now. And the template is now published. I'll go to the documentation, we'll edit the documentation. Right, there are only 2 files for this. I'll quickly add it. You cannot take multiple files uh, at this point of time. You have to take it one by one. And the image 3 full set. Okay, I'll go to visual. So here, in the similar way, the example way, the same approach is being followed. Assumptions, prerequisite, example use case, what all files we are sending it, right? And so for now, we are sending 4 files: PDF, Excel, CSV, text file. We can add any files we want and then set up and run this template. So in this, just properly document all the steps uh, we can make it. Okay, and the result, so what that email will look like. So this kind of email will come with this particular at the button, right? So on this button you can call any other service, right? So that way this button, this functionality can be reused, and this kind of files can be, sent over mail. So these all screenshots usually makes easier for the developer or any person to reuse this template, and that can basically, you know reduce our development time. I'll quickly publish this, and as said, I'll add the image for this. All right. So this way the example and the template is now deployed, and now I'll try to publish it using okay. So for that, similar changes we have to do in all POM. The first thing is we have to change the group ID. For now, our group ID is this one, which by default will be added because we already deployed it, we already published it, right? And I'll change the version now. So I'll make it 2. I'll change the major version. Okay. Apart from this, in the Mule Maven plugin, I have to add the classifier as a Mule example template. Here it is. I'll have to template. I'll close it. Okay. I'll see if that is proper. Right, classification, Mule application template. Okay, and the last change is we have to add that distribution management repository, which is also by default added. I just have to change the group ID. I'll quickly do it. And change the server name. Right, good to go for deployment and good to go for publish. Sorry, let me go that particular location and do deploy. So this is the last step we'll be doing for today, and as soon as this is deployed, I'll try to provide few more session. I think it will be required for the rest assets, and that will be pretty much easy for easy for any developer to understand. All right, so build is success. See if it has been properly published to Exchange. So this time we have published a version 2.0, right? So this has, you can see this has been now published. So that way we have shown like how to publish the example and templates using the Anypoint Studio as well as Maven Face API. Okay, so I think that's all for today.
So we have two
And
questions, Prashant. So one is from
yeah,
Arvind. So is there any cons of data wave library?
so for data wave libraries, as this is recently released, so uh, like uh, I have to dig into it basically to get all
The,
the details. Okay,
the,
so
co- the,
at this
the
point of
major
time, I
con
can't
that I
say
am
anything.
seeing, Prashant, is having an extra Visual Code Studio installed on your system, right? Because Anypoint Studio
Yeah,
itself,
that.
consume a lot of RAM from the system, and installing another Visual Code Studio on your system, it will again, require. And I'm not talking about the con, but I'm talking about the issues that we may face if you still go by using the Visual Code Studio.
Mm-hmm. So that is also one of the way. I mean, that is correct, but usually it all depends on the problem it is solving, right? So uh, we usually used to create that. I usually see that problem, like we can't reuse that library in a proper way, and we can't document and publish it. So I think if this plugin, if Anypoint Studio plugin uh, is available for this, so that might, yeah, solve the problem whatever you're looking.
Yeah. So next question is on the same line, right? So Kalyani is asking, ki, is Anypoint Studio directly we can create the module and mapping dataable file, because I think the plugin is not available for Studio, right?
I think, yeah, we can create it in the Anypoint Studio. So only module file we can create it, and the same way we used to do it previously as well, if you remember, right? So that mapping and module file we can create it. Yes, the answer for your question is yes, we can create it. But the only thing was we can't share it. We are not able to share it properly with other developers. Okay, and with this release, data libraries, we can now share it properly in the exchange. We can document it, and all the documentation is now being properly added, inline documentation, and it also have some more benefits apart from that. Yeah.
Okay.